Good evening and welcome to our How to Become a Social Worker webinar. I'm your host, Stephanie Dehan, and I'm the Events and Content Manager for SACAP. Without any further ado, Kgomotso, I now hand it over to you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kgomotso Ntlatleng, and I would like to thank SACAP for the opportunity to present to our prospective students pertaining to what social work entails. Briefly, I am a UP alumni. I am also a VIT student enrolled for Master of Art by Coursework and Research Design in the field of social development. I've been in practice for 5 years. I've worked as a social work tutor. I have also worked with Child Childhood Cancer Foundation, where I was rendering psychosocial services to children who are diagnosed with cancer and life-threatening blood disorders. And I'm currently working for the Department of Social Development. What is social work? I liken social work to a plain canvas board because social work offers a wide variety of fields that one can specialize in. So basically, one can color their canvas anyhow that they desire, depending on their interest and depending on their passion. So in terms of passion and interests, for me, I'm very much passionate about academia. I'm very passionate about project management, policy development, school social work, child protection services, and psychosocial cancer intervention strategies. As a social worker, one can work with individuals, one can work with groups, one can work with families and communities across all life stages. You can work with children, you can work with adolescents, you can work with the youth, you can work with adults, and you can also work with older persons. And just to give you an example, in my work, I have facilitated a parenting program, which was comprised of 14 sessions, where I was working with both adolescents and their parents. And their parents was made up of, and the category of parents was made up of older persons and adults, as well as the youth. So you have graduated, and what happens? What is the way forward? What are job opportunities that are available for you? So as a social worker, you can be a school social worker. You can render services in schools. You can also render services within the child protection system, where you are working with foster care children and children in need of care and protection. You can also render mediation services. You can render victim empowerment services. You can also do research, be involved in policy development, policy planning. You can be involved in project management. You can be involved in community development. You can also be involved in occupational social work as well as clinical social work. Now, in terms of the practice settings where you can render services in numerous settings. For example, as a school social worker, you can render services. Either you can be employed by the Department of Education, or you can be employed by the Department of Social Development, where you are based within the district, however, rendering services to schools as well. Or you can be employed within schools by the school governing bodies and rendering services in schools. You can work in the hospital. It can either be a private hospital or a public hospital, where you are rendering psychosocial services. You can be based in non-profit organizations. You can be based in non-governmental organizations. You can work within the Department of Social Development, where you are working within certain areas, certain regions, or you can render services in child and youth care centers. You can also work within the health sector, as I had mentioned, where you can start your own practice focusing on that. So you can start your own practice after certain years, focusing on a specific field. You can specialize either in trauma, you can specialize in whatever that is of interest to you. So everyone, whether you are a social work practitioner or you are a student social worker, you are required to register with the South African Council for Social Service Professions, and we have an annual fee that we pay. And within this council, you are required to work under the supervision of a qualified social work supervisor. And being under a supervisor is very fundamental for your personal and professional development. Now, as a student social worker, how you can develop both personally and professionally. So when you are registered and enrolled for a BSW program, you will be given an opportunity to be in the field, be placed in organizations where you have an opportunity to practicalize what you have learned in theory, where you will be able to have one-on-one sessions with clients, where you will be able to plan your sessions based in the organizations, in the fields, where you will facilitate your own groups, where you will also plan and implement your community projects. So there are various ways in which you can also grow. So as a student, you can be affiliated with a student association. For example, I remember when I was in UP, we had a student association called UPSWA that I was part of. And whenever there were events, that organization would, apologies. Oh yeah. So as a social worker, in terms of your personal and professional development, you can acquire new skills and knowledge by enrolling in programs that are accredited by the SACSSP. You can also attend informal trainings or in-service trainings that we would have in your workplace. For example, at my current workplace, we would have a certain training and have 2 people nominated to undertake the training. Then when they come back, they come and teach us what they have learned in order to disseminate the information that they have learned. So what would happen as well in terms of development as a social work practitioner? You can network with your colleagues, and that will enable you to collaborate. You can start a project together, you can be involved in research together, and you get to meet people along the way. Additionally, you can also be affiliated with organizations, with associations, and that includes the International Federation of Social Workers. That also includes the International Association of Schools of Social Work, where you get to go for conferences, attend webinars, you can travel, you can join and become a member and get all the benefits. So all of this helps us to keep abreast with these new developments within our field, because things are constantly changing. And through trainings, you are able to develop yourself as a professional. I would like to thank everyone, and I wish all our prospective students, I wish them well in their future endeavors. Thank you very much.
So I'm Denean. I am one of the work integrated learning coordinators for the Faculty of Social Work and Community Development at SACAP. And today I'm just going to share some insight with you all on all things work integrated learning at SACAP. So in conclusion to what Kgomotso has said at the beginning, we can basically sum up that social workers are not just kind people, wanting to change the world. Social workers are educated professionals who go through a 4-year accredited higher institution program that includes significant components such as work integrated learning. So you might be asking yourself, what exactly is work integrated learning? Work integrated learning is the process whereby students gain practical experience in their field of study before they graduate. And at SACAP, work integrated learning starts from the first year of your Bachelor of Social Work program until your final year. So what does this mean? This means that you would get, over the 4 years, you would have the opportunity to complete over 1,000 hours of trainings, workshops, field work, and you would be supported through individual and group supervision at your designated campus. Then moving on, once you have concluded the 4-year Bachelor of Social Work program, you will then qualify to register as a social worker with the South African Council of Social Service Professions. So adding on to what Kgomotso has said, when it comes to registering with the South African Council of Social Service Professions, you will register when you are a student as well as when you graduate. And that was quite a mouthful, so you might be asking yourself, how does one degree offer so many fields to explore? That is because no matter where you find yourself in life, there will always be need for a social worker. Social workers are trained to assess and intervene across 3 intervention levels, and I'll go through the levels with you all. The first level being micro intervention level. This level focuses on direct individual practice, and examples of this could be social workers working within an organization or a clinical setting that focuses on an individual's treatment plan or rehabilitation plan. Then the second one is meso-social work, and meso-social work looks at groups or social workers working within group settings. Examples of this could be social workers working in NGOs or organizations that render either group therapy, psychoeducational groups, or facilitating support groups, etc. Then the last level of intervention within social work is macro social work. And macro social work focuses on community work and looks at social work from a larger spectrum. This includes advocacy, activism, policy development, among others. But it's also important to note that social workers are trained within all these 3 levels, but it does not mean you have to be confined to one level, because many social workers work across these 3 levels, work in all, work in one. So yeah, it diversifies over your career. So social workers are trained and equipped to work across these 3 intervention levels. So in the next slide, I will explain to you guys what the various roles are of social workers when they are in the field as well as when you are studying. So as you can see, these are a couple of roles that social workers have. And my absolute favorite part of being a social worker is how diverse our field is. Every social worker's day would not quite look the same because you find yourself having various roles in the field. I'll use myself as a practical example. So I'm a registered social worker, and one of my significant roles at SACAP is being a coordinator. But in addition to that, my role requires me to also be an educator, a supervisor, a trainer, and an advocate. Hence, I believe I am incredibly lucky to have chosen this career path that equipped me with the skills and knowledge to allow me to fulfill various roles while being in the field. Thank you. So many times when you ask someone, why do you want to be a social worker? They would tell you, I want to help people. And you know, to many that might come across as a cliche statement, but the reality is social workers are equipped to empower people to help themselves. So in conclusion, if one of your aspirations is to make a positive and sustainable difference or change in the lives of individuals, families, groups, and communities in a sector that you are best passionate about, then this career or this degree is definitely the one for you. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. I hope that I can welcome most of all of you to SACAP in 2023. I will now hand over to my colleague Kudzai, who will give some more insight into social work. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kudzai Ngwara. I'm the program coordinator at SACAP in the Faculty of Social Work and Community Development. Today, I'm just going to be going through the Bachelor of Social Work application process, as well as the selection process. So the Bachelor of Social Work program is a 4-year professional program, which is registered by the South African Council of Social Services Professions. All applicants need to go through a screening and a selection process. And our classes are usually limited to just 20 students in our Cape Town. Durban is not yet running, but Cape Town and Joburg campuses are currently running. And this is within the academic year. In the next slide, I'm going to talk about the minimum requirements. So firstly, you could qualify for this program if you've got a national certificate or a national certificate vocational, and you need at least an equivalent or levels in terms of like at least a level 4 for all subjects. And for English, you need at least between 50 to 59% all level 4. So at least if you've got 6 subjects with all level 4 and above, you will definitely qualify, including English being a prerequisite for this particular program. Or alternatively, you could also have a senior certificate, which is not older than 2008. And there's need for English and mathematics or maths literacy, which is a standard grade pass of better or equivalent to a school living certificate. And you can also qualify for this program if you've got a higher certificate, which is an NQ level 5, which is a prerequisite of the SACAP verified equivalent qualification, advanced certificate, or diploma in a cognate field. And SACAP also provides higher certificate qualifications, just in case you are interested in the Bachelor of Social Work, but you don't have any of the qualifications I've spoken about. You can start with a higher certificate, then move on to study social work. Or applicants that are above 24 years of age or older and do not have any of these qualifications, they are able to also be recognized for this qualification, but there's also need possibly to provide a portfolio of evidence demonstrating formal, informal, and non-informal knowledge, training or work experience, possibly in the field of social work or in the field of social welfare, or in any field that is related to community development, for you to be able to be recognized for this qualification. In the next slide, we're going to be talking about the documents that are actually needed. Before you think of applying, you'll definitely need to have a certified copy of your ID booklet, and you'll also need a certified highest qualification copy. So from the requirements that I've mentioned, so if you've got a senior certificate, you can make sure you attach that, you already have that and it's certified, or if you've got a national senior certificate, make sure that it's certified, or if you've got a higher certificate, NQF level 5, ensure that it's attached to your application. You'll also, in terms of international students, at times need additional documentation when you do this application. And then you also need additional documentation may be requested for individuals applying for social work. So for instance, if you are applying and you are 24 or older, like I mentioned before, you'll definitely need maybe work experience, a letter, other things in terms of references might be needed to prove or to support your application, so you can be considered for this program. So moving on, so the selection process, the screening and selection process is divided into 3 different rounds. So the first round is a paper-based application and screening process. So this is mainly where you get all your documents. Like I mentioned, the certified ID copy, highest qualification, and any other additional documents that you need. You'll also need a completed application form that can be found on our SACAP website under the Bachelor of Social Work program. And you'll also need references. So one thing to really note about references is to ensure that your references are not family members or people that are maybe friends, but we need references of people that know the candidate, the prospective candidate, more on a professional level. People that know the candidate maybe on a academic level. So if you have just finished high school, maybe your school teachers would be ideal to provide references. Maybe if you've worked, people that have employed you, your supervisors, your managers, would be very ideal to provide references in this category. So moving on to the round 2, it's the selection, interviews, and presentation process. So after you have submitted all the documents, your application form, references, now you'll be called, and if you're successful, you'll be shortlisted, and now moving on to the selection process. So Firstly, when we start, this is it can be a face-to-face interview, or we can have it virtually. So firstly, the student will need to present a PowerPoint presentation where they pretty much explain to us about their family and why they would want to study social work. And one thing to note in this category is also to just say it's not a formal interview. It's a very informal interview. It's just a space in which we want to get to know the student better. We want the student to express what's actually motivating them to study social work. Then from there, the student will also need to answer some questions that are usually social work related, student related in terms of, so what is the student capable of doing, or even given we give you different scenarios in terms of you being a student, because the program of social work is a professional program and it's quite rigorous at times in terms of the expectations, meeting deadlines. So we definitely just assessing as to the capability of the candidate in terms of being able to deal with the pressures that come with being part of the program. So the interview is very much informal, just to get to know the student. So we highly encourage our prospective candidates to not feel like it's a job interview and be scared, but instead to just relax and just bring their best selves forward and let us know why you want to actually study social work. So the round 3, this is the final selection panel process. So after you've done your application, you complete the interview process. Now you're moving on to now assessing, or rather looking at all of these things and deciding whether you'll be accepted. And given that you're accepted, or once you're already waiting for this response, we highly encourage our prospective candidates to start applying for a police clearance certificate, to start applying for a National Child Protection Register clearance, as well as to register of persons convicted with abuse and older persons, according to the Older Persons Act of Act 18 of 2006. So we need these documents because social work, as a social worker or as a student social worker, you're working with very vulnerable people within the society. So it's important for us to get fit and proper persons who are able to qualify according to the South African Council of Social Services Professions. So you need to ensure that you've got a clear police clearance certificate, and this can be obtained at your nearest SAPs or South African Police Services. They'll be able to assist you with the whole process. And the National Protection Register, you will also need to apply. It usually takes time, so we encourage students to just complete the form that we're going to share. It's form 30. Yes, it's form 30. So you just need to complete the form, put in your documents, and then be able to just send it through to the National Child Protection Register, and they'll be able to clear you. But you can still, even if we accept you, you can still continue to with your studies, but provide proof or evidence that you have indeed sent in your police clearance, you've submitted your police clearance, you've submitted your National Child Protection Register clearance, and you've also managed to register for persons convicted of abuse or older persons, because this is a prerequisite for you 4 years, 3 years later, now when you complete the qualification and you now need to be a registered social worker. So you definitely need to just apply these beforehand and ensure you have that sorted out. So in the next slide, it's important that after you have submitted your application, you have a checklist in terms of what you have submitted and ensure you have everything submitted. So like I mentioned, a completed online application form, ensure it's as detailed as possible. Try by all means to answer all the questions that are asked of you. A certified copy of your ID, a certified copy of your academic transcript, either for matric or your senior certificate, or your highest higher qualification certificate, the NQF5. And you also need 2 referee reports, and ensure this needs to be more of a professional or academic references, not your friends or your relatives. And from there, also just to ensure that you've already started the process of police clearance, the National Child Protection Register, and ensure that you also have paid the application fee, and we'll get back to you and we can start the process. All the very best to our prospective candidates. Thank you.
I think also what we can do, Dr. Poppy, is would you like to just give us a little bit more information on what that interview process is like, while some of the attendees give us their last bits of questions, and we'll go straight into the live Q&A?
Thanks, Steph. You've actually outlined the process, the selection process clearly. So I'm part of the panel. Oftentimes there's 2 of us interviewing you if you'll be applying with us. In the interview, basically, like Steph has said, it's not like a job interview. We want to know who is the applicant, what drives them, what motivates them to want to study social work. We want to see the passion coming out of you to change people's lives. And we also want to know who you are, your family background, your siblings, your mom and dad, or your grannies, whoever is important and that has shaped your life, making you the person you are. We also want to see whether you will fit in with our students, because at SACAP, our classes are small, and we want to see how you will adjust, what your needs will be, what are you planning and hoping to do once you complete it with the degree. And it is also an opportunity for us to tell you more about social work. What was presented by Kgomotso and Denean is exactly what we'll be sharing with you, to show you that with this degree, you'll not be making the wrong choice, because there's plenty of work opportunities. I saw in the chat, one of the participants has asked, what are the job opportunities? I must be honest with you. Job opportunities are plenty. Unfortunately, in the country and in the world, unemployment is high broadly, and that does not only affect social work students, it affects all graduates. But we are hoping that with our new government and with things changing, with the load shedding particularly, it affects our economy. So our government should be able to collect taxes when a lot of people are working, and be able to employ social workers, because as you all know, because of our complex situation, we need social workers. So there is plenty of job opportunities. If you'll not be working for government, you'll be working for the NGO sector, or for the private sector for that matter, or even go to an extent of studying your own practice. So the interview is basically just to discuss and engage with you and tell you what SACAP offers in terms of student support, in terms of events and activities that will make your university life as exciting as possible. Steph, I think I have shared, unless there's other questions from the participants.
Thank you, Dr. Poppy. At the moment, we don't have any open questions. However, there is one that Dr. Poppy has already responded to. Someone has asked about international students. And Dr. Poppy has mentioned that we do accept students from other countries, and the degree will be recognized in their countries by statutory bodies where it will be expected to register before practice. We currently have students from Zimbabwe, Namibia, and Malawi. So Dr. Poppy, I think I'd just like to know, are applications still open for this program, and how urgently do students need to apply in order to go through the selection process?
Before I answer your question, I just want to add on the international question, is that SACAP has been on a mission to internationalize our program. So we are currently applying to offer the program also online, which means that we'll be recruiting students from all over the world. As well, we have been able to form a partnership with a university in Germany. We are working on another partnership with a university in the US, but we are also looking at other opportunities with other universities in Africa. In South Africa, we are collaborating with University of Venda, because we want to give our students various experiences. So our degree will be, it is internationally benchmarked, We are a member of an international association of of social work, schools of social work. So our program is internationally aligned and benchmarked and approved. Therefore, if you study with us and your intention is to go and work overseas, have no fears. Your degree will be recognized. To come back to your question, Steph, yes, we are busy, still busy selecting, but this Friday will be the last because we are starting with term on the 20th, and next week we'll be organizing orientation. So if you are interested in applying and studying with us and you haven't applied, get online tonight or tomorrow, the latest. Upload all your documents, and then you'll be scheduled for an interview with me and my colleagues on Thursday and Friday. Then you can come register with us next week.
Thank you, Dr. Poppy. Also, just a reminder, as you have seen, we are all experiencing load shedding. So if you are struggling, you are welcome to go into any of our nearest campuses and ask for assistance with your application form. We urge you to take your documents with you. We'll be able to scan them and upload them at our campuses to ensure that your application form is complete. Right.
And we do face-to-face interviews on our 2 campuses, Cape Town and Johannesburg.
Thank you, Dr. Poppy. We have a question. I'm a registered social auxiliary worker. Can I apply to study in 2023?
Yes, we do take social auxiliary workers. We do have students that are studying with us currently who did the social auxiliary work certificate. It is actually advisable that you register and study social work so that you can become a social worker.
Thank you so much, Dr. Poppy. We have a question about bursaries. Unfortunately, we do not have a bursary available, but many of our students apply and study with student loans and private bursaries or funding. You can find out more about some of our private loan partners on our website as well. So we've got a final year student at Stellenbosch. I have a more general inquiry surrounding the difficulties of gaining practical experience. I understand that SACAP has a work integrated learning program. However, when applying for any grad, particularly yours, how does one combat this?
So we have a SACAP, we have a person like Denean, who's the WIL coordinator. So it is Denean's responsibility to build relationships with NGOs and government or any other organization that employs social workers. So Denean will go out to those organizations, have meetings with them, look at their programs and their services, and build those relationships to make sure that when we place our students there, our students will get an experience that is worth their investment. We make sure that the training that they get at the organization is in line with the theoretical training that we provide at SACAP. You will be placed in an organization, you will be allocated a supervisor, and that supervisor will be working very, very closely with Denean, making sure that there is alignment between what is taught in class and what is taught in field. So students should not have difficulties finding placement sites. It is not your responsibility to find a placement site. It is our responsibility, and it is our responsibility to make sure that that organization is screened and it's registered and accredited to provide social work services and social work training. Our supervisors in the various placement sites also undergo training with us so that we can make sure that there is coherence and an alignment. And Denean periodically have meetings with the supervisors in those placement sites. And they also do check-ins with the students on a timely basis to make sure they can understand what your difficulties are or what opportunities are there, or whether you've got any needs, to make sure that they can intervene immediately when you have problems. So we do take responsibility for this, for our students' learning, both on campus and on the field. Denean, do you want to add?
Yes, I wanted to add a few. So just to answer your question, when it comes to SACAP's work integrated learning program, we actually value, like Dr. Poppy has mentioned, we do assessments before we sign on sites. So a lot of our sites have been through assessment processes. We look at the risk and safety protocols. We also look whether there is capacity and whether the site is actually getting clients in for our students to be able to see or do the groups or do individuals. And yeah, meet the necessary requirements. So yeah, when it comes to combating those challenges, we actually do regular evaluations, we do assessments, we do something called a mid-placement review. So while you're at the site as well, we also do reviews. We're checking with your supervisor. So one thing I can guarantee you that SACAP does is we're very supportive of our students, especially when you are in the field. And like Dr. Poppy has mentioned, that's my responsibility as the work integrated learning coordinator. But the nice part is that you also get your supervisor. So you'll get an individual supervisor, you also get a group supervisor while you are at SACAP. So the support for you will be there while you are gaining that practical experience.
Thanks so much. I think we've got quite a bit of time, and hopefully it opens up the floor to a few more questions. But if I could just ask maybe Kgomotso, if you could share with us what your study journey was like to becoming a social worker and to where you are now.
Thank you, Steph. Thank you for the question. And I would particularly like to highlight on my personal and professional development, why it is very important to have a supervisor under which you work. So I remember my practice supervisor at SACAP, we call them the will coordinators. So what that supervisor did is that I'm one person who likes to take up tasks. So I was a project manager for a community work project. I was this and I was that. And in our small practice group, we would celebrate birthdays. And when we celebrate birthdays, I would be the one to go and collect the money, go and buy. So I took up a lot of responsibilities. So I remember we had a supervision session where we were just reflecting on my growth, my journey. And I remember the lecturer saying, Kgomotso, do not burn yourself to keep others warm. And I took that, and that has helped me in my profession as a social worker. So currently as a social worker, I prioritize my things and I'm able to say no and be assertive. So it does help having a supervisor to groom you both professionally and personally. So yeah, that has been the highlight of my experience as a student social worker. Thank you, Steph.
Thanks so much. Denean, would you like to add something about your journey to becoming a social worker?
I think I can relate a lot to Kgomotso when she's sharing that she valued supervision. And I think for myself as well, I absolutely valued supervision when you are studying within the Bachelor of Social Work program, because you don't only get to be on a one-on-one with that person. It's a lot of person-centered. You get to have that sessions, you get to debrief, you get support academically. So highlights for me were definitely supervision and that support that you receive. And also that you get to, the nice part of WIL, and I always tell a lot of students this, is that you get to explore different sectors, you get to find your passion, you get to see whether I love child welfare sector, whether I love GBV. So you get to explore different sectors and see where your passion lies. And with this degree, you can go in so much sectors, like we mentioned, like both Kgomotso and I've shared, you can go in various sectors. And the nice part of WIL is it gives you that opportunity to actually go into the field and see whether you like that sector. And when I was studying, I took different sectors over the entire 4 years so that I got to explore what the sectors were before I identified, okay, no, this is actually a sector I love. So that's the nice part when it comes to the practical experience in social work itself.
We do have one question. I'm actually registered with SACAP for first year social work. Yay! We look forward to having you with us. The question is, does SACAP register students with the SAC, SSP, or do our students have to do it themselves?
I'll answer this question. So when it comes to registrations with the SSSP, so you have to register when you get to your second year before you actually get into the field and get to do field work. You need to register as a student social worker. So SACAP supports students throughout the process. So currently the process is online. So in collaboration with the PC at SACAP, you guys will work together in ensuring that you are registered before you actually go out into the field. So you are supported along that journey, definitely.
Thanks so much, Denean. We have one more question. So good evening. I am interested in studying social work, but I have a full-time job. Do you offer part-time classes, ideally online? Thank you so much. So unfortunately, at this point, it is not offered online. As Dr. Poppy mentioned earlier, we are hoping to get accredited for online learning. And at this point, it is currently only offered 4 years full-time, face-to-face contact at our Cape Town, Johannesburg, and Durban campuses. So we're really sorry about that one. Another one, and again, I'm not sure if Kudzai will be able to speak into this, but maybe Dr. Poppy, you could also give some feedback. I have studied social auxiliary work. I'm registered and I'm working for an NGO currently. My marks in English were less than 50. Do I have any chance for my application to be successful at SACAP?
Unfortunately, for English, the marks have got to be 50 and above. What I would suggest is that you try and upgrade your marks in English, because that's going to be a requirement, not just at SACAP, in many other institutions. It is not a SACAP policy. It is a Council of Higher Education requirement for university studies.
Thanks, Dr. Poppy. Another one, and Denean, perhaps you'd be able to speak into this one. Social work tutors, and I'm guessing this is perhaps also facilitators or mentors or supervisors. How does one get to choose one, or does the faculty choose for our students?
Yeah, so I think the question is probably specific to supervisors. I'm going to assume that you mean social work supervisors, because that's what we refer to them as. So the faculty does choose them for you. So we select certain, we screen, we source our supervisors, and then we obviously assigned a student a supervisor while you are studying at SACAP, and you are during your journey. Then also something we actually I think we're launching this year, something the PALS program that SSD is launching as well. So also get a social work tutor in addition to having a supervisor, which is something amazing that's happening this year. So SACAP does select it for you, definitely, when it comes to your supervisor. And the reason for this is because we want to ensure that our students get the best of the best. We want to ensure that the supervisor you have is competent enough to deal with its academic reports, to deal with everything academically. So we do source and we do allocate supervisors.
Thanks, Denean. I think also just as a follow-up for PALS, what that actually means is peer-assisted learning. And what that means is if there's someone in your class or in your group that's doing this degree with you that is doing really well, they actually offer up their time to assist you. And if you are the one that's doing really well, you actually assist some of your peers. And so this way, you not only have to wait for educators or academic supervisors, but you can turn to your peers within your classroom. Right. Okay. So we've got one more question. And again, I think Kudzai would be best to answer this. However, Dr. Poppy, perhaps you could give some feedback. So good evening. This is my last year of studying industrial and organizational psychology. Would I be credited if I want to study social work?
If I may answer that, Steph, yes, they will be credited, but not more than 50% of the modules that they would have taken. So there is a policy in place around that. We will look at the modules that we've done that are relevant for social work training, and then we credit you those, but it won't be more than 50%, unfortunately. Okay. And the other thing is that you cannot go ahead of your other students. So you will stay on par with your peers. If you're in first year, you can't jump to fourth year. You're going to have to go year by year.
Thanks so much, Dr. Poppy. I just want to thank our panelists, Dr. Poppy, Denean, Kudzai, and Kgomotso, for joining us this evening, for sharing their insight into the social work field and the opportunities available to everybody, for making yourself available this evening. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. We hope you have a lovely evening further, and good luck on your journey to becoming a social worker. Thank you.